And action. All right, guys, what's going on? Zach Evnish here with the Strongcast podcast. I believe we're on episode number 7 and brought to you by, I'm sponsoring my own show, the Underground Strength Coach Certification. We got new dates for 2014, going to be in Hershey, Pennsylvania with Big Mike Jenkins. Then we're going to be at Elliot Hols's place, Strength Camp in Florida, and then heading out west to CrossFit SoCal in San Diego. So we've got an awesome guest. We only have awesome guests on this podcast. We got Ryan Brown. And Ryan, you're in Louisville, right?
Yes. Yep. Louisville,
awesome.
Kentucky.
So I actually connected with Ryan through Instagram. I think I saw your photos through our buddy Chad Smith, and you're part of Team Juggernaut. And every time I saw photos, I was like, man, this dude's firing me up. He's training like this, always inside a squat rack, always inside a power rack, always squatting ass to grass, just going, getting after it. And you got some real cool, I guess, history from you being in the military, having your own gym, now transitioning your business, your gym and your online stuff to within your own house, training outside of the business. So let's give people a little bit of background and tell everybody kind of how you got involved with training and how basically you got to where you're at now. I mean, now you're doing seminars with Team Juggernaut. You've done a lot of traveling, learning from others. You're just like an aggressive learner, and you're like what I call a strong nerd. you're really smart, and you're really strong. And it's like such a great blend when we see that, because sometimes people that are very knowledgeable, they're just so book savvy, they forget to get under the bar. But every time I see a picture of you on Instagram, I'm like, man, dude, now that I saw Ryan squatting again, I feel like I have to squat today. So talk to us about your upbringing into strength and conditioning, sports, and just a little background on yourself.
Yeah, well, I was in the Marine Corps, and, we did the typical Marine Corps stuff for a real long time, where we would wake up, run for that 30 or 45 minutes or so, and then come back and do some pull-ups. And then eventually I got introduced to CrossFit because I saw Captain Chontosh, who around...
What a beast.
Yeah, around, 2.5, 3.5 and 5th Marines over there. He's kind of like, everybody knows who he is after the Navy Cross and all that. And so I kind of saw he was really into CrossFit at that time already, and I saw the things he was doing. And, a guy like that, we just kind of look at it and said, all right, well, we're just going to do whatever he's doing. And I always think it's kind of funny now when I look back, because nowadays I'm so all about making sure things are perfect and learning how to do things correctly and all that. And, whenever I started CrossFit, I was exactly the guy that I write all these articles about, saying, don't be that guy who, I would just look at something on the internet and say, oh, power clean. Sure. I'm just going to pull this off the floor as hard as I can. And, all of our workouts, I started training my squad with CrossFit, and we paid no attention to form. Every one of our workouts was 20 to 30 minutes, just try to crush everyone as hard as possible. So it's kind of funny to see that evolution of, that's where I started with now. And now I look back on it, obviously we still do hard workouts and things. Now I have enough knowledge to be able to progress people instead of just jumping right into stuff.
Instead of crushing people. So what you saw Tosh training? Is that what happened, or you just saw him? Yeah. And you were like, holy shit.
I trained with him a few times because he wasn't in my company, but he was the company commander of Fox Company, which was like they were in the same barracks as us, and so he was around a lot. He was on ship with us, and so I got to train with him a couple times. And when I did, I would ask him questions. He was obviously an officer, and I was an enlisted Marine, so we didn't hang out or anything, but I trained with him a couple times and try to pick up a couple little things. But mostly he was just kind of like, we would see him doing stuff and just be like, oh my God.
What was the stuff that you saw him doing that inspired you to say, man, I need to do what he's doing?
Well, one time while we were on the ship, he did a 1-minute boxing round with every single person in his company, back to back, which I think we were on deployment, and so they had attachments and everything. I want to say there was maybe 150, 160 guys.
Holy shit.
So like 160 1-minute boxing rounds back to back to back. They had people lined up. But I mean, that was just him. He just did crazy stuff that, you know, maybe it might not be the best thing for you, but just to kind of prove to everyone that you're tougher than them.
Right. Who did anybody get any good shots on Tosh?
I think towards the end, I think towards the end he did start to get a little tired, but you know, I looking at him, he was kind of that person that made me kind of really get into it and see, you know, this can be pretty cool, because before I saw this stuff, then it was just kind of like all we did in the Marine Corps to get in shape was go run, and I was reading Men's Health and Men's Fit. I was already, you know, it really interested me because it was important for my job, and you know, to be able to train my guys to be strong and fast and, you know, have that endurance. But that, you know, him, and then that was what kind of got me into CrossFit, which now, obviously, you know, I've competed now in weightlifting and powerlifting and strongman, excuse me. You know, that was kind of the door that opened everything else that I've learned, you know, over the past several years.
Right. Well, so when I think about the military, I'm always like shocked at how there's so much more knowledge out, and they're still doing the run for distance, calisthenics. I guess, is it, you know, from what I understand, and actually I did my CrossFit cert level 1 about 6.5 years ago on Quantico base, on military base, and the younger Marines had a real hard time. And I don't know how level 1 cert is today compared to back then. Back then, dude, we were training like crazy, and the younger Marines, they looked like they were in their 20s, had a very tough time. And the guys that looked like they were late 30s, 40s were kicking ass, the Marines. So
yeah,
what happens when, you know, guys go into the Marines? Do they just look at it like, we're going to break everybody down, everybody does the same thing? Is that really just the way it needs to be?
Well, I mean, I think that there's obviously that element, you know. I think that when you go to boot camp, that's all about breaking you down. And they do that. I think that, you know, obviously the physical education could be a little bit better, but, you know, there's no time for that in boot camp. You know, that's about, it's supposed to break you off when you get there. I think that, you know, and they do a better job of it now in the special operations community. I know that they had Charlie Weingroff down at Camp Lejeune for a while, and, you know, they bring people into the special operations community to really, you know, to try to educate and try to do a better job. But, you know, it's starting, I would say, to trickle out. But, you know, there's still those old school guys, you know, the old gunny that says, all right, it's time to wake up in the morning, and he's drinking his coffee and he just wants to run 7 or 8 miles. So right. there's gonna be those old school guys. But I think that you know, it's slowly starting to change, and you see the CrossFit gyms popping up everywhere now. So, you know, a lot of people are getting into different types of training, which I think is good.
Right. Are you doing any work with Marines? How long have you been out?
September, I think that would be 4 years for me being out.
Are you doing any work with any Marines or no?
I haven't lately. We used to have one of my coaches, Taylor Drescher. She was in a platoon leaders program to where she did her training while she was in school during the summer, and then whenever she graduated, she got her commission and then went on to. She's in the Marines now. She's actually just got stationed out at Camp Pendleton. Nice. She's a really solid CrossFit competitor as well. But I worked with them a couple times, and they would have them come into the gym, and we would put on like a squad comp for them and stuff like that. But in Louisville, we're not very close to any water, so there's not a whole lot of Marines around here.
Right. So talk to us about where you're at since the Marines. You've been out for 4 years. You started getting involved in CrossFit, inspired by seeing Big Tosh. And what is he, like 240, 250 ripped?
Yeah, I mean, he, you know, what's funny is that I remember back whenever we first saw him, I would always think he's so huge and so strong. And then now I've kind of been going along, and now I hang out with people like Chad, and it's just like, well,
that's
wow. Now, where does it stop? Because it seems like the longer I stick around, people just keep getting huger and stronger.
Right. It's definitely crazy to see the, like I say to myself too, like, holy crap, like people are deadlifting 800, 900 pounds. It's, you know, in their garages. Nuts.
Yeah.
So you get out of the Marines, you're inspired, you're doing CrossFit. I know you've written some articles about the mistakes you made. Talk to us about some of the mistakes you made that you feel people really need to pay attention to so they could avoid these big mistakes that you made.
Well, you know, I think that I don't necessarily advocate avoiding too many mistakes because, you know, one of the things I wrote about on the website the other day is about how all of the mistakes and stupid things I've done have kind of led into the opportunity that kind of let me take that next step and do the next thing, which is, you know, I'm pretty happy with what I'm doing now, so I can't be too mad about the mistakes I made. But, you know, the thing that I've, you know, notoriously done is just kind of rush into things and kind of move into something and be all ready to go at it, you know. You know, and that goes back to, when I got out of the Marines, I started going back to school for exercise science and started just working out at a CrossFit gym. I was still competing in CrossFit at the time. And, you know, I obviously kind of talked about it a second ago. When I started CrossFit, I didn't really take the time to learn how to do anything. You know, I just started doing it and then started learning how to do it after I started doing it, which is kind of backwards of the way I would really recommend people go about that. But, you know, and then kind of down the road, eventually what happened is I started coaching at that gym. I started getting really into it. You know, it's pretty handy whenever you're in college for exercise science. It allows you to dedicate a lot of time to learning about being in the gym and learning what to do in the gym and how to relate to people. And so eventually I was asked to kind of take over that gym and start running it. You know, in hindsight, I probably should have waited just to kind of do my own thing rather than to kind of jump into something with some other people. But I was excited about the opportunity, you know, and at that time, it really wasn't even that great of an opportunity. The gym, it was losing money every month. We didn't really have any equipment or anything. And so I was just, I was excited because I was confident that I was going to be able to do something with it. But in hindsight, you know, maybe I should have just kind of waited out. But yeah, so what I did was I withdrew from school that semester. It was in September whenever we took over. And I was just in the gym 60, 70 hours a week coaching. I mean, there was days I coached all 11 of our CrossFit classes throughout the day from 5 a.m. all the way to 8 p.m. class. And, you know, that stuff, that was great for me, though, because while I did that, you know, I was dealing and I was coaching so many different types of people. You know, that's one really good thing about CrossFit is that if you're coaching CrossFit, then you get exposed to basically everything that you could possibly be exposed to because old people come in, young people come in, everyone in between comes in there. You know, people come in shape, they come in not in shape, injured, not injured. You get every type of person you get to work with within CrossFit. And so I spent a long time doing that. And then here recently, after spending about 3 years kind of working on that gym, I just kind of made the decision that it was time for me to kind of break off and do my own thing. And, you know, when I decided that, I didn't really have a really great plan for what exactly I was going to do. So I ended up taking, you know, I ended up getting a little bit of a buyout from the gym that I was working with for my percentage ownership of it. And it was all in equipment. And so I just took all of that equipment, moved it in my basement. And basically what we're doing now with Dark Side Strength is, you know, we're trying to put out a lot of videos. We're trying to, you know, reach a much bigger audience. You know, we coach at the Juggernaut clinics and seminars and things. And I really enjoy, you know, I've learned a lot of stuff from a lot of really, really great coaches. And it's exciting for me because I learned most of it going to the seminars and going to the clinics. And so it's exciting for me whenever now I go to teach at these things and to coach at these things. And I see the same type of people that are there and they're anxious to learn new stuff and they're anxious to take that and then be able to go and apply it to people.
So I just want to back up a second because a lot of people that follow the podcast, follow the blog, want to become a gym owner, want to be a strength conditioning coach. And what I see is what you spoke about is you end up getting very busy. You were training like 7 to 11 sessions a day. How did you train yourself during that time? Did you fall off the wagon or did you find a way to make it happen?
Yeah, well, you know, there was periods of time where my training would be all right. And then, you know, but I'm not going to lie, there was a lot of days. There was probably a good 2 or 3 month span where my training meant that at least 2 or 3 days a week, I would come in and I would squat something, you know, whatever I felt like I could do that day. You know, I would just come in, I would squat. I stayed active, but I can't really say that I was training. I would call it more exercising.
I got you.
You know, I consider the difference between training and exercise. Like if I'm on some kind of plan, I've got some kind of goal, that I'm training. I can't really say that during that time I did a lot of training, but you know, I kind of consistently exercised so that I didn't really lose a lot. And then once I was able to bring people in to help me out, get more coaches in there, then I was able to kind of pick up, you know, more actual training again.
On your own. What were some of like the business lessons you learned from managing that gym? You know, you said it was losing money. What are some business lessons that you learned that you could maybe pass on to other people that are running their gyms, that maybe they're not successful, maybe they are successful, but you feel that are important lessons you learned?
Well, I think the biggest one is that you got to really focus on the people that you bring in there. You know, for the most part, people come to gyms for a couple of reasons. You know, you know, technical skill is great, but to be honest with you, the average person doesn't know. You know, if I have a high level of technical skill, and this coach right here might not really know what the hell they're doing, but the average person doesn't really know anyway. So that average person wants to come in and they want to train with the nice, upgoing, you know, be friendly with people. And, you know, I like one of those books, how to win friends and influence people or something. He makes a point, learn people's names, you know, be friendly, talk to people, try to learn a fact about that person. Because that's the stuff that gets people into gyms and gets them to want to come back, is to become a person to them and not just that gym. I think that, you know, within CrossFit, when you see the really successful CrossFit gyms, they have lots of little groups of friends and things like that. It's not necessarily the most technically skilled guy. I mean, if you want to be the most technically skilled, then your audience is the coaches all of a sudden. Because the average person that comes to the gym, you know, they don't want to hear me talk about the way that they should spread their toes. But, you know, the coaches, they want to hear that stuff because they're interested in it. The average person that comes in the gym, you know, they want you to care about them getting better, and they want you to care about them. They want to know, you know, they want to be personable.
Right. As I always say, like, being friendly, it's so easy to do, but I'm shocked at how many people just don't throw a smile on their face and just aren't upbeat. I mean, I guess it's gotta be in your heart. So you're now running, what kind of equipment do you have in your basement, and are you training people in the basement? What do you have going on now?
Well, I've got 2 half racks. I've got a full rack. They're pretty nice. They're the collegiate nice ones.
Where'd you get those racks from?
They're from Elite FTS.
Nice.
They're the good collegiate racks. And then I've got a couple of sets of Olympic bumpers, and then a few Olympic bars, safety squat bar, camera squat bar, and I got a bunch of chains and stuff like that down there too. I have had a couple people over here that I've trained. I'm not really, you know, I also still work at Trinity High School.
Yep.
We have a barbell club there, so we have weightlifting and powerlifting, and then I've got some kids that, you know, are just kind of doing kettlebell movements, just to, you know, the kids that aren't too athletic. And so we have the barbell club over at Trinity High School that I work with. And so I haven't been doing too much personal trainings type stuff. I've had a few coaches from other gyms to set something up and come in here and we'll work on some stuff down in the basement. But for the most part, it's been, you know, me and Quinn training. Just people will come over and train every now and again. It's pretty fun.
Yeah. So what's really cool is that we were talking earlier, is that the fact that you're making it happen. A lot of people, when they reach out to me, they kind of know my story. They've maybe seen very old videos or seen me speak on the journal, CrossFit Journal, and they're like, man, I didn't know, you know, you started out of your garage. How did you make things happen? And here you are, you're in your basement, and you and your buddy, Dr. PT, Quinn, you guys are crushing videos, several videos a day, I think, right?
Yeah. Well, you know, what we're doing, it's kind of one of those things. I thought it was funny after I told Quinn that I was going to be doing your podcast with you, is because whenever we moved all the equipment in the basement, I said we went underground, you know, literally underground into the basement. You know, and we just kind of, like I said, I didn't have a whole lot of a plan at first, but we just kind of looked at what we could do. We looked at our skill set, and we said, let's just start pumping out videos. So really the plan is, with our YouTube videos, we get together on Tuesdays and we make about 20 videos, and then we just have those uploading throughout the week. And our goal is just to kind of keep going, and we want to make a video for every exercise we can think of. This week we even kind of covered safety bar squats and some good mornings. So not just the corrective stuff, but then, you know, I want to make videos for basically everything, and our YouTube channel then can kind of be a massive exercise index.
Yes, I love it. So it's really cool that you didn't say, man, I bought out the gym that I used to be with. I've got my equipment, and now I can't do anything because I'm in my basement. Whenever a coach asks me, like, what do I do? I always say, you got to show people what you can do. Get videos done. Like, stop waiting for perfection. You guys are in, like, I saw it was, like, very dark. It looks like you bought some, like, studio lights and started trying to get some lighting.
I went over to Lowe's. I went to Lowe's and bought some floodlights because in the very first video we made, I started looking at it. I realized it was so dark you can barely see us. And now I look at the videos and it's almost so bright that sometimes we're almost too bright. I don't know if maybe we need to hit the tanning bed or I don't know. Maybe I got to dull the lights down or something. We have to get a makeup booth down there maybe.
That is funny. What was I going to say? So where did you come up with the name Dark Side Strength and Conditioning? Because it's just always interesting to hear why people name their training as such. And did you ever say to yourself, oh no, this might turn people away? Like, what inspired you to name it? And what have you found?
Yeah, when we originally did that, that was kind of the idea, was that we were going to turn some people away. When we first started the Dark Side Strength, that was me and my buddy Waylon, and we were just two guys, and we were just lifting weights together. And we were still in Derby City CrossFit. But at that point, I competed in CrossFit for a while, and after the CrossFit Regionals in 2009, I believe, I went there, and I thought that I was strong at that point. And one of the events was after one of the 5K runs or something. One of the events was a max deadlift, and I expected it to be a really good event for me. And it was actually my worst event. I finished like 30th, and it really did bad for me. Which the best pull there was like 560, and I pulled 470, and it was like 30th place. So, and then after that event, then I was like, wow, if I'm going to be competitive in CrossFit, then I'm just going to have to start getting stronger. And so I kind of shifted into more strength training. I started digging around, finding stuff in powerlifting. At that point, I hadn't really dived too much into Olympic lifting yet, but I was trying to find some ways to get stronger. And so the name Dark Side just kind of came from, we were part of Derby City CrossFit, but it was kind of the dark side. We were doing powerlifting, and we liked, at that time, a lot of times the music in there wasn't very loud. It was and so whenever we were doing our thing, it was, loud music, and it was, after eventually the gym moved, and when we were back there, we had our own separate room that was a dark side room, and we had a really solid group of about 8 guys that would show up every day at about 4:30, and we would just hit it hard. We'd turn the music up loud and just, go to town. Heavy squat day, it was a lot of fun. It was, but that was kind of how it started, and then eventually, once I took over the gym there, we kind of combined Derby City CrossFit and Dark Side Strength, and since we split off, then I kind of take Dark Side back, and originally when we had it, it was kind of just something we were putting our workouts on the internet. We were talking about what we were doing, and the goal of it was to grow into something that, I think now we're finally getting into. I think that as I was owning that gym there, I started to get away from what my original goals were, which was to kind of, focus on being the best coach and then putting my message out there and teaching people. That's the thing that you were talking about a second ago, is that you can easily, when you own the gym, you easily get caught up in that grind of owning the gym and thinking about, looking at the profit and loss statements, thinking I've got to get members here, I need this, I need that, and it's really easy to get caught up in all of that aspect of it and forget, like, why did I do this in the first place? Is that I want to be the best coach. I want to be able to teach people stuff. I want to spread the good word, basically. And so I think that, moving down to the basement, what I started to realize is that I'm really just kind of getting back to what my goals were in the first place.
Right. So I remember reading about that article that you put up about how 470 deadlift is not shabby. I mean, that's pretty serious weight, but to take 30th, it's like, holy crap. So
yeah, it's even worse nowadays. Everyone's even stronger now. So
right, they're like 500-pound deadlift is like a pretty normal thing amongst CrossFitters.
That's a prerequisite. You have to have at least 5.
It's insane. So what have you learned, through competing in these CrossFit events? How does somebody really prepare for a CrossFit event? How would you want them to prepare? I've seen different styles of programming, and AJ Roberts was at our gym like 2-3 weeks ago, and he showed how they do the like the conjugate method for CrossFit, and it's just still a big focus on strength work. It's like, you know, they still do the upper lower, and then they have like a competition, like a WOD day, you know, or an active recovery day. What are just some like things that you feel are critical if you want to be a successful CrossFit competitor, let's just say at the regional level, because that's pretty damn tough?
Yeah, you know, for me, always number one thing that I always want to fix with people is their movement quality. And that doesn't just go to, oh, I want to talk about specifically fixing your push press or specifically fixing this or that. You know, when I look at movement quality, I start looking at that when somebody walks in the door. I just start watching them. That's one of the big things. You know, I had the opportunity to have Kelly come to the gym and do his Kelly Starrett do his seminar. But it was also just so happened that the Kentucky Derby weekend. I don't know if you've heard of the Kentucky Derby, but it's a pretty big deal. So it was Kentucky Derby weekend, and so what I did was I actually got to hang out with Kelly for about 4 days. And you know, I learned a lot at his seminar, but I think that the number one thing that I learned from him is that he never shuts it off, ever. You know, you can be standing there or sitting and eating dinner with him, and he's pointing out how people are sitting wrong. We were at the racetrack, and he's pointing out how the jockey, he's doing this or that, and it's kind of, you know, which horses stand better and have better posture, and, you know, he never ever turns it off. And I think that, you know, when I look at someone's movement quality, that's what I'm looking. I want to see if everything works right, because typically, if everything works right, well, then the movements themselves are pretty simple to learn because you don't have to think about all this extra stuff. Right. And I think, you know, it's bigger in CrossFit than it is in weightlifting or powerlifting or anything, because there's such a wide array of movements. There's no way that you can practice mastering every single movement that they ask you to do in CrossFit. And so what you have to do is just master the basics of movement. You know, make sure that everything works the way that it's supposed to. That way, whenever you get called to ask to do whatever movement it is, well, you at least have that, you know, ability to achieve the correct positions. So for me, it's always that.
It's the move.
And then yeah. And then from there, I usually say that a CrossFitter is going to need some sort of weightlifting-based strength program, just because weightlifting is a huge part of CrossFit.
Right. When I want to kind of go now, you're working at a high school, right? You're running their weightlifting program. So I work with a lot of high school kids. So do a lot of people listening. They're training a lot of athletes. What do you do over there as far as like making sure? I mean, that is some shitty movement happening. It's like it is weak city and shitty mobility country with these high school kids. So what are some of the things you're doing to just open them up and get them to move better?
Well, you know, I make those guys, and as much as they hated it at first, I make those guys start off, and we start with breathing drills. We started with it very first because, you know, most of those high school kids will say that they're inflexible. They'll say that they're tight, but more often than not, they're just exceptionally weak. And so as they start to learn to brace, you know, and that starts with the breathing, obviously, as they start to learn to brace and start to learn to move, all of a sudden those flexibility issues start to go away. You know, and it takes, honestly, this is my first year working with them over there, and I think that honestly it took a couple weeks of real buy-in for them to, before they started to realize, like, oh wait, I'm starting to get better now. And so now, you know, they come in, the first thing every day in our warm-up is our breathing drills, and they start, and we, you know, and I use a lot of because they're kids and they want to be able to lift some weights, and so in order to keep them interested, I know it needs to be fun in there. I can't have them, you know, doing breathing drills for an hour every single day. And so obviously we got to work hard and we got to lift weights. But, you know, I try to use the warm up and kind of what we're gonna go and film this afternoon. I try to use the warm up to slowly make them make progress. You know, we start off on our backs, and then we build ourselves into a half kneeling position. We use a lot of split squat stuff to kind of build our squats and build all this stuff in a warm up over the course of time. Yeah.
What kind of program do you do? How many days a week do those kids lift? 2, 3 days a week, 5 days a week?
They're lifting with us 4 days a week right now, and then we might actually be able to add something in here once. Well, the football playoffs are going on right now, and so I've got a lot of kids that are playing football, that will be joining up with us once football is over with. So right now we're lifting 4 days a week. We do a little bit kind of a cube method with our powerlifter guys, and then I still work pretty closely with Colin Burns. He's a really solid Olympic lifter. He was working with me over at the gym. He's kind of doing some more online stuff now as well. He runs the Olympic lifting stuff for us over there. He won the Snatch National Championship, and he's looking pretty good for the American Open in December as well. So he runs our weightlifting stuff there, and they're training 4 days a week.
So you do powerlifting with the athletes, and your buddy Colin does the weightlifting with the weightlifting team?
Well, I mean, we're all technically the same team.
Yep.
The way that they have it over there, it's kind of like a club sport, and so we're all the same club. But right now, this is their first year having weightlifting, so I don't know if we technically have anybody we could consider weightlifters yet.
Right.
Because Colin learned his weightlifting at the Olympic Training Center, and so he's very, very strict with the way things are done. So, our guys right now are still learning to pull and learning to do all of that stuff. So I don't know if we really have anybody we could consider weightlifters yet, but we're getting there.
What do you think of, how are you guys progressing them into weightlifting? And people listening, weightlifting is also, people call it Olympic lifting. So are you guys teaching them how to squat, press, and deadlift first? Or are you teaching them how to do cleans and snatches and jerks with the PVC pipe before the power lifts?
A mixture of both. Because some of these kids, this is my first year working there, but they've had a powerlifting club for a while. And so some of the kids had decent stuff as we go, and then some of them need a lot of work. And so, I focus on trying to, I always try to focus on just building people piece by piece, and so some of them are ready to go into learning to power clean. And then some of them, need to just do a half kneeling squat, and they need a goblet squat for a while just so they can, you work with kids. You've seen a lot of them just need to learn how to use their body. And then once they learn how to use their body, well, then you can do whatever, Just learning to use your body makes you stronger. And so if you don't use any weights and you have learned to do something, well, then you just got stronger and you just got faster. So, depending on where they're at, we've got 70 kids or so.
At one time?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, a lot of times I might have a few absent, but I'll have a lot of times, I've got practice with them tonight. On Thursday night, I'll have 50 to 60 kids in that weight room, awesome. It's live in there. It's pretty fun. It's a pretty fun gig.
Yeah, that is awesome. Now, I like when I hear that, because when AJ Roberts was at the gym and he was telling them, what is West Side Method? He's like, you're going to go there and everybody's going to be doing different stuff according to their weak areas. And a little bit before that, somebody in the CrossFit community was saying, hey, if you're scaling workouts, then you're failing. Because they're like, you're supposed to have a, like an on-ramp program. So if your whiteboard says push press, straight bar deadlift, and you need people to do a one-arm dumbbell push press, and instead of a straight bar deadlift, they have to do a trap bar deadlift, they were essentially saying you're scaling, you're failing. But when we train athletes, you might see a group that are back squatting. Maybe another kid is doing Zercher squats, and the newer kids are doing goblet squats. So it sounds like you're on the same page. Like, you're okay with people doing different shit because it's really what they need to work on, period. And it seems like, do you guys kind of have, it seems like that's what's going on at your weight room. Like, whatever level you're at, so the whiteboard might say back squats, but everybody's going to be doing a different variation of some sort of squat.
Yeah, for sure. I have basically kind of three basic programs running. One is a more advanced program that kind of runs basically Brandon Lilly's cube method.
Yep.
And then I have some guys that they back squat and things, but then their accessory work is more corrective type work. Split squatting or half kneeling, pressing, stuff like that. And then I have a third program. I've got some freshmen and things that mostly kettlebell stuff where they are kind of just learning to use their bodies some. And then, anywhere in there, I might have a guy be doing this stuff from program A and say, all right, well, you need to also add this or you need to add that. And, when I had the CrossFit gym, I did the exact same thing. I hated to program a prescribed weight for a workout.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want regular people coming to the gym. I don't want them to feel like they need to be able to do this weight or that weight. I want them to use the weight that they need to use. Obviously, if you're going to be talking about competitors, then you're talking about something different. Then you need to have those prescribed weights and things like that for your workouts. But I as much scaling as possible is kind of my, try to tailor things to what people need as much as possible, because if you give somebody what they need, then they improve a lot faster than if you give them more than what they need.
Right. So if people want really to find out the cube method, I love that ebook. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
When you are, here's a cool question that people have definitely asked me, programming wise. So when you were at this CrossFit gym, if the workout of the day said, let's just say it said deadlifts coupled with pull-ups coupled with double unders, what did you say? Like, what kind of sets and reps did it say on the deadlifts? What did you say? Like, work up to a heavy triple, or what did you say for them to do if there's no prescribed weight? What do you prescribe?
Well, I mean, I would prescribe the sets and reps and things like that. Now, for strength work, we would have, I would usually use percentages. But at the same time, I would usually also kind of encourage those people to use the percentages as a guideline. I'm a big fan of Mike T as well. I don't know if you know Mike Shashir from Reactive Training Systems.
I know that name. Yeah.
Yeah, his system, Reactive Training Systems, he uses RPE scale a lot more, which I find really useful, especially when you're dealing with regular people whose lives aren't dedicated to training in the gym. If you've got a lawyer that comes in and works out with you and he's 40 years old, and he set his 1 rep max whenever he, was rested and felt great and he crushed it and had an awesome day. And then all of a sudden I've got, 85% prescribed a day, and he just got something huge dropped on him at work. He slept 2 hours the night before.
Right.
You use the weight that feels correct for you for the amount prescribed. Those percentages I think of more as guidelines, because I think when you look at a lot of top weightlifters or powerlifters, they don't really adhere strictly to percentages too much.
They go by, like Louis always says, like your max is your max for that day, which is essentially, I don't know if that would be considered auto-regulation. It would be a little bit of it, because it's like saying, hey, you feel good today? Kill it. You feel beat up today? Back off a little bit. And I think the way you do it, I do that also. And it's tougher to coach that way. It takes more energy and more work. And I think you have to be a better coach to do it, because it's so easy to say everybody's going to deadlift this weight, this many reps. It's tougher. I think you have like a lot of mental agility is what I tell my coach. I go, listen, we're going to be doing a lot of stuff. Like the advanced guys are going to bench. Then the other guys are going to be doing dumbbell floor pressing. And the newer guys are going to be doing push-ups and maybe push-ups with chains on their neck. And you're kind of everywhere, but that's much better than saying everybody's benching, when some dudes, if they don't know how to be tight on a push-up, they're not ready to bench.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So cool, man. I love hearing that stuff. What would be like a question, I like to ask this question, that you wish I asked you and you really want other coaches and other lifters to know? You're like, man, I wish more people would ask me about this, or I wish more people were doing this. What's something that you'd want, people, like a message you'd really want to get out to people?
I think that my biggest thing that I usually deal with people, and I saw a couple of these articles get posted up about people kind of talking about this corrective strategies and like all these different corrective exercises and how, you don't need this, you need to get stronger. And, and I agree 100%. For the most part, people's mobility problems are problems of getting stronger. Now how you get stronger is kind of where we kind of start to have a little bit different opinion, because I look at it as you need better stability and you need to better be able to hold yourself in a correct position is getting stronger. And I see some of these articles saying if you're a strength coach, you need to know strength exercises. You don't need to dive too far into corrective, because that's more physical therapy stuff. And, me and Quinn had this conversation yesterday, as we were talking about, how far down the physical therapy road of understanding corrective exercise and understanding the way the body works should you expect a strength coach to go. And my opinion on that is that with the wealth of information that is readily available these days, you don't, as a strength coach, you don't have any excuse not to have a very good understanding of how the body works and not to have a very good understanding of how to utilize, these corrective movements to make your people move better. Because I've seen it time and time again, people struggle with technique on a squat or things like this. And the fact of the matter is that if you give them the correct exercises that they need to be doing, instead of telling them that they need more, your bag of tricks opens up way, way more the more you try to learn, and to me, you have to go so far down that scope all the way. Like a strength coach obviously isn't doing manual manipulations, that's where you have to have a doctor,
right?
But as far as understanding correctives and understanding the body and, that functional anatomy, as like some people like to call it, I think that as a strength coach now, you can't just write programs, because that's only one little aspect of training. It's also nutrition. You have to know your nutrition stuff. You have to know how to write a program, but then you also have to understand the body and understand what looks right and what looks wrong, as far as not just technique, but the actual body itself. Where do the shoulders belong? What should it look like when somebody takes a breath? All of those things, you need to understand that to be a really good strength coach now.
Yeah, I think people should dig into the Supple Leopard book. They should be crushing that if they're coaches. And you guys are putting out a good blend of strength work, stability work, corrective, exercises, breathing. And even though you said split squats are corrective, I love lunges, Bulgarian split squats, reverse lunges, walking lunges. Dude, we use that stuff for strength, but it's also good. Those split squats make their hips, it forces them to get mobile, makes their abs tight. So I see what you're saying. People could blend the two of them together. How do you, when you're at that weight room, 70 kids, I'm sure you see a lot of tight T-spines, kids that can't put their arms overhead real well. Ankle and calf mobility is very poor, so when they squat, their feet slide out. How are you guys implementing mobility amongst 50 to 70 kids?
Well, like I said, we always start with our breathing stuff because that clears up so many of those issues. I have some kids where you might call that tight T-spine thing, but those kids are so young that they haven't had time to get really tight yet. And so a lot of times once we start learning to keep the ribs down and take that breath and really fill yourself up, after a week or two of that, then we kind of eliminate a lot of those problems. The calf and ankle thing is huge because of the shoes that these kids wear. This is a private school that I work at, and so they're always in dress shoes. And so their toes are all clamped together.
Yep.
Their heels elevated in those dress shoes, and so their ankles and their feet are awful. And so I'm always trying to talk to them about learn to try to spread your toes apart and learn to move your foot. And then calf and ankle stretches are kind of the only stretches that we do as a group. And then if I individually see something, I don't really like to assign stretches too much to a group because for the most part, like I said, a lot of that stuff clears up once they get stronger. Kids at that age don't need to stretch too much. They haven't had time to get tight. Yeah. And so if you just make them strong and make them squat with a full range of motion, because they love to stop, a quarter of the way down, make them squat with a full range of motion, make them do it correctly. And then they build the length and the flexibility that they need once they have the strength to control the positions.
You guys don't have them training barefoot at the school, do you?
Sometimes we'll warm up barefoot, but once they actually start the lifting and stuff, they put their shoes back on. I don't want anybody dropping on toes and things like that.
Those young kids scare us. We never know what they're going to do. How do you, when I look at your Instagram photos, you squat, man, you got, your butt is all the way down, to the calves, to the low soleus, good posture. How did you get to, were you always able to squat like that? Were you always good hip and ankle mobility, or did you work for that? I've been on quite a path of that, which is kind of how I ended up learning about a lot of this stuff. I had a hip injury, and I have, I collect disability from the VA for my shoulder, even though I can still do a lot of stuff. But that's kind of how I got onto the corrective and mobility, learning about all this stuff, is I had to start fixing myself. And I say where I was at is I was kind of more hypermobile
to where like I've always been able to squat deep, but then when I look at videos of what I used to do, what was happening was I wasn't controlling it. I was able just to dive into it, and I could see that, you know, I saw things now when I look back and understand it. I saw things moving that weren't supposed to be moving, and then it kind of goes back in and makes sense of how I ended up hurting myself.
What were what were the wrong things? What were the wrong things during the squat?
Well, I was really, really overextended in my lumbar spine, which happens a lot in the military where you wear your boots a lot. And so then you kind of start doing this when you stand at attention. And, you know, it happens a lot. I see it a lot with guys that get really extended and have that anterior tilt in their hips. And so what would happen with me is I would squat, and then it kind of round over and things. And, you know, learning how to control is actually what kind of improved my squat the most, more than, you know, obviously I do some stretching and some things like that, but mostly it's kind of learning to control that position. And then when I squat, you know, that reinforces it.
Cool. I just want to back up a second, Rye. You speak about breathing a lot. You know, just give us real quick tips on how should somebody be breathing: through the nose, through the mouth, through the belly. What do you want them?
Well, you know, what I usually try to focus on is the sequence. And so a lot of people will coach to breathe down into the belly, which is right, kind of. But then what I see a lot of times, especially in powerlifters, or push out on the belt, is that they will push just their belly out. And so you'll see somebody take a breath in and their belly expands, and that's the way it should start, but our lungs are up in our chest. They're up here. And so if I breathe in and just my belly is expanding, then I'm creating some different problems. And this happens a ton. I see it more with people who have been thinking about their breathing and been thinking about pushing out the belt, is they'll breathe in and their belly expands. So what I try to coach people is think about the sequence. So I breathe in through my nose. My belly should expand a little bit, but then my abs need to tighten up and provide some resistance to my diaphragm. And then from there, I continue to breathe in, and as my abs tighten up, I should feel my lower back push out a little bit, right? And so whenever I have a belt on before I squat, I should be able to push out all the way around the belt, you know, all the 360, not just in the front, which is most people are just pushing out against the front. And so we push out against the belt, and then after my lower back pushes out a little bit, it's chest, and then I finish that air into my upper back, which a lot of people struggle with being able to fill their lungs completely with air, which is why we'll start people off, they'll be flat on their back. So we don't fight gravity. We're able to maintain a neutral spine, keep the pelvic floor and the diaphragm facing each other, and then learn to set the pattern like that, and then gradually work our way back into a standing position. You know, it makes a massive difference. And for me, I start everybody there because every single movement that we do starts with breathing. And so if you don't have that down, then every single movement you're doing is going to be wrong.
Right. It's like breathe and brace. It's crazy
Yes.
how, like, you could see, like, an untrained person, their trunk will be like a tree in the wind, just, like, kind of floating around. I don't want to crush you here on the time, so talk to us about just, in general, getting strong. I mean, you use a variety of training tools. You train out of your basement, real simple. And that's where I've always said some of the strongest dudes are coming from. They're just lifting in a garage or a basement. Are you blending strongman weightlifting and powerlifting? And how does your own training look like?
My next thing right now is that I'm kind of looking for a powerlifting meet I would like to do. I haven't done a powerlifting meet in a couple years. And I think I'm pretty close to being able to hit elite total. So I'm kind of looking for that next. But I'm still doing some weightlifting stuff just because I enjoy it. You know, when Colin came in, he started working on me getting better extension and pulling on the bar. And so I'm doing, you know, I'm mixing kind of a cube method type deal with some weightlifting that I add in just because I want to stay sharp with the weightlifting. I'll probably still do some more weightlifting meets eventually. Right. But that's the way my training is going now. You know, the only thing I don't really like about a powerlifting schedule is I like squatting more than one day a week. But
you do like squatting more than one day a week?
Yeah, you know, I enjoy it. It makes me, you know, whenever you do a weightlifting program for a couple years and you're used to every day you go into the gym, you're squatting. You know, even if it's cleans and snatches, there's still squats involved there. So, you know, I do kind of miss squatting more often, but. I definitely can feel a little bit stronger when I don't squat as often. So
really, so
well, yeah, I mean, I just better rested. You know, I wouldn't say that I necessarily. You know, I just get more rest when I squat one day a week.
Right, but mentally, it's like you have to battle your desire to want to do a little bit more. So
Yeah.
here's a quick question: you got a lot of ink on your arms. Like, tell us, like, what inspired you to get the tattoos, and what some of them mean.
Honestly, my tattoos are kind of ridiculous because I've been going. I've got piece by piece. I'm kind of known to just walk into the tattoo shop and let the guy just draw something cool on me. So, I do have the word pain tattooed on my ass. That's kind of a good one that my buddy did while we were in a tattoo shop one day. And then I also got a really good one in Hawaii. I have do work tattooed on my calf right here. You can just kind of see this. Looks real good. Let's see if we can see it. Can you see that?
Yeah, that is legit.
Where that was while I was in the Marine Corps, and we were having some Mai Tais out on the beach in Waikiki.
Nice.
And at 11 a.m. somehow I ended up at a tattoo shop, and I was getting on my legs. So what are you going to do? That kind of stuff happens, I guess.
That's funny. Cool, man. So let's tell people about how they can connect with you. I know there's a couple ways for them to, and I'll link everything up. I'll link up the website, the YouTube. I'm pretty sure did Chad put you guys like with your own page for the articles, or?
Well, so right now we have a website. It's dsstrength.com. It's not quite fully operational because I kind of made some mistakes when I was setting it up, but we're still posting some articles and some good information there. Our YouTube is just under my name. It's Ryan Brown, and we are pumping out tons of videos there. And then you can check out our Facebook page. It's Dark Side Strength. And we're trying to kind of keep putting lots of good information up there as well. So
cool. And what about traveling? I know you're doing some of the seminars with the Juggernaut crew. Are you staying local, or are you traveling anywhere soon?
Well, so the last one was out in California, and then I think in March, 2 weeks after the Arnold, we're going down to Houston. We'll be doing the Become Unstoppable Seminar 2, which that was a great event with some really, really strong guys out there at that one. So that should be another really good event in Houston. And then we have some local little clinics and seminars that we've got set up. But nothing big travel set up quite yet. So,
all right, cool, man. So we're gonna link everything up below for people to reach out to you. I definitely recommend everybody's checking out Ryan, and I'll also link up Instagram. Everything that Ryan does, very inspirational, educational. It's a real cool blend, and he's out in Louisville. So if anybody ends up hunting you down to train with you, there could be another Dark Side crew in the basement. And big thanks to everybody for listening to this episode of the Strongcast podcast. Share it with your friends, and we are at undergroundstrength.tv, and make sure you guys get out to a certification. We're doing some traveling this year. undergroundstrength.org. And Ryan, thanks so much, brother, and it was a pleasure, and hopefully we will meet up.
Awesome, man. Thanks
a lot, bro. Talk to you later.
All right.
Yeah. Feel like that. Bang. Yeah. Bang. Bust it out like that. Bang. Come on. Bang. Yeah. Coach your deals, underground strength coach.